Zod is a validation library, and I'm going to show you how Zod can save your code base from becoming a sloppy pile of spaghetti code. First, I'm going to show you an example of some spaghetti code validation. Then, I'll refactor that code with Zod to show you just how much better it is. Let's get started. Here I have a basic Hono app with one API route called /books, and when you hit this route, it'll give you back an array of books. And optionally, you can provide a min price or max price query param if you want to filter out that array of books. So let me demo this to you. I can start up my local development server, and then I can jump over to my index.http file. If I send a request to /books, here we get back an array of books. And then if we provide the query params min price and max price, we're going to get back an array of books within that price window that we've provided. And then if we provide an invalid value like none, we should get back an error message. And just as expected, we need it to be a number between 0 and 1000. And then if there's a bad query param like baby poop equals true, and I'm a new dad, so I've been dealing with a lot of baby poop equals true recently, we'll also get an error message telling us that only min price and max price are valid query params. Awesome. So everything is working as expected. And I went ahead and took all of these use cases and turned them into tests in our test file here. And I can show you that these tests are working in the terminal by running bun test, and everything is working as expected. The only problem here is that this code is a hot mess. Everything from line 8 all the way down to 57 is all validation logic, and it's cluttering up our function. We have 5 different if statements in here which contain conditional logic, making it hard to understand what this code is actually doing. Luckily, we have a solution. Zod can take all of this grotesque spaghetti code and implement the exact same logic in a cleaner and more readable way. So let's refactor this before I start having nightmares. The first thing I'm going to do is comment out the current /books endpoint and create a new one so I have a blank slate to work with. We're going to run all of our validation logic in the zValidator middleware, which is going to make things really convenient. And it'll take anything in this dropdown, and we're going with query params. Now we can add our Zod schema, and the Zod schema will always show up as an object, and all query params come in as optional strings. So we can declare that and add a default value if the param is missing. Now in the body of our request, we can pull the validated params off of rec.valid. Now we can get the books by price. And return that list of books back to the user. And you can see TypeScript is giving us an error here. We're expecting a number and we're giving it a string. So Zod works well with TypeScript, and we can fix that using a transform where we can change the string into a number. And now our TypeScript error is gone. We can make this even cleaner by moving our Zod schema to a separate file. So I'm just going to cut this here and create a new file. Then I just need to import Zod, and I need to set our schema to a variable that we can export. Now I can import our schema back into our index file. Let's run our test file to see how our new code is performing. We have 4 failing tests. Let's take a look at this first one. We want to make sure that minimum price is less than max price, and if it's not, send the user an error. And we can do this with Zod's refine function, which allows us to add some logic and a custom error message if our logic fails. So here we can say if the minimum price is less than the max price, then continue. Otherwise, send this error message. Now let's run our tests again. Our test is still failing, but this time we can see that our error message is there, but it's nested inside of this array of issues. This is how Zod returns errors, but I don't want to return this entire blob to our users. I just want the error message inside of an array. Luckily, there's an easy way to clean this up. The zValidator middleware takes a third parameter, which is a hook. Inside of this hook, we can access the result of the validation and the context object. Then, if the result is not successful, we can format and return the error message how we want. So here I'm going to dig into the Zod error and find our message. I'm also going to return a 400 so the user knows it was a bad request. And if the result is successful, the code will continue down to the body of the request as normal. Let's run our test. Awesome. Our test is passing. Let's take a look at this invalid query param test. We're expecting to get a 400 back, but we're getting a 200. We need to send the user a 400 response if they send any query params that are not allowed. Zod has an easy way to do this with the built-in strict function. We can chain strict on here, and then we can add our own custom error message. Now let's run the test again. And now it's passing. Looks like we're not returning 400 errors for prices outside of our range. We can fix this with the refine function, where we can add our own custom logic to make sure minimum price and maximum price are between 0 and 1000. And then we can add our own custom error message here. And I'll just copy this down to max price as well. And run the tests again. And all of our tests are passing. This means we've reached feature parity with our previous spaghetti code example. Now the last thing we can do is a small refactor to improve readability. We can move the Zod validator to our schema file, import the validator, and then add a variable to export. Now we can import that middleware back into our index file and remove these unused imports. And now we can run the tests again and make sure everything is working just as expected. Here we have our final product. All of our validation is bundled into our book validator, and our endpoint is clean and easy to read. Our Zod schema is simple with no if statements, and compare that to our old spaghetti code, and you can see why Zod is going to save you a lot of headaches. That's all for today. Happy coding and Godspeed.